we are going to see how GraphQL can deal with multiple data sources and take those data and send it back to you, right? How beautiful it is. Okay. Hello guys, how are you doing? I hope you're doing good. Now time is 3:22 in the morning, 3:22 a.m. Tomorrow is a working day and I finished my work a while ago. It's time to sleep. But based on the messages I'm getting to my inbox and also the feedback, I know you're waiting. So I decided to record this video before I sleep. So you can watch this video early in the morning. Right. Last video we discussed about GraphQL data sources and also we discussed what are the capabilities the GraphQL has over REST APIs. So today we are going to go a little deeper because we are going to see how GraphQL can deal with multiple data sources, right? So remember we discussed GraphQL may have a database, GraphQL may have a flat files as a data sources, GraphQL may need to talk to other REST services as a data sources, right? So today I'm going to show you how you can configure a REST service for data source and also how you can use a multiple data sources, right? Let's say user asking employees and the project, employee come from the database and the project from the REST service and be put together and give it back to consumer, right? So a lot of things to do and I have created API, REST API to help this project, and don't worry, end of this course I'm going to push this entire code base to my GitHub repository so you can get this code from there, and all the data and all these APIs I'm using, even this supporting API I'm going to push there so you can use it, right? So what you need to do is when you clone the code, you just go there and run npm install, so it will install all the dependencies for you and then do npm start, right? So now it will run. So let's go back to my browser and see localhost 3000 projects. Now it's working, right? So you can see it has some project information and the project has an employees tag that tells who are the employees working in this project, right? They have an employee ID. And if you want to get a particular project, you can say like give project ID, it will fetch the particular project, right? This API support to get all the projects as well as a particular project, right? So good. So now what we need to do is we need to get this into our GraphQL server, right? So let's first see whether it's in the still working state from our last video. Okay, good. So go back to the playground and run some queries. Yeah, it's working, right? Let's change the ID and see. Yeah, it's working. Okay, it's working fine. So now let's start the work. Okay, right. So you need to make sure the API is still running while you do this because we are going to send bunch of calls to that API. Okay, so I'm going to data source section and I'm going to create a new file. Right, new data source. This is I'm going to call as my project service, right? So I'm going to name as a project.js, and for this one I'm going to stop the running project for now, right? For this one I'm going to use a new data source called Apollo data source REST, right? So how Apollo data source work? They have a basic data source called Apollo data source. We can use that and create our own data sources to connect to databases and everywhere, right? But they have a separate library called Apollo data source REST, right? So how this work, for example, let's say something like this. Okay, so let's first install this npm I Apollo data source REST, right? Okay, so here how this project configured, this project has a static data set what we configured last time. So if you go here you can see we have a data source, plain data source, and then we have this file configured here, JSON file, and we extract that and give, right? So if you want to configure this to a database, right? Then that's very easy. If you're using Nest.js, you can use type ORM. If you're using plain Node, you can use something like SQLite or something like that, some ORM framework, right? There is nothing specific to GraphQL. If you know how to configure database to the node with the connection pools and everything, that's exactly working here, no different, right? But if you think you need that example as well, comment below or send me a message to my page, so I'll try to do that. But I don't think I have to do that video, because that's very simple and very similar to this static data set, right? It is not like a different REST data source. Okay, so now I got this installed. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to implement this here. Okay, so I'm going to get const let's say data source equal require Apollo data source REST. Okay, I'm not sure this name, so let's go here and see what is this bit. Oh no, it's a REST data source. Okay, so you can go here and always see that. And there's one thing, and if you think, and it's not like last video, you can see now I have a syntax highlighting and everything, because while I'm working on a different project, I installed GraphQL plugin to my VS Code, right? You can search for Apollo GraphQL plugin for VS Code, and you can install that to your VS Code, so you can get this nice syntax highlighting, right? If you remember last time, it was a single color. Okay, it's not a big deal, but this I like this, and this easy. Okay, so I got this, right? I got this import. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create my class, right? And I'm going to name this as a project service extends REST data source. Okay, so since I forgot last time, I'm going to do the export also now. Module.exports equal project service. Okay, good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to call the constructor, and I'm going to get the constructor is nothing come, and I'm going to call the super. But last time only this one I did. I just called the super, but this time I have to configure one parameter to tell what is base URL for my REST service. Okay, so this dot base URL equal HTTP localhost 3000. Okay, like that. Okay, and also I'm going to write initialize, but I'm not going to do anything with that. Okay, so also now I'm going to create, so I have a project API. That project API is capable to take release two type of data. One is a total project, and another one is a find project by ID, right? So I'm going to create two methods for that. Get projects. So how this what I'm going to do is I'm going to return this dot get. Okay, so now what I need to do is the base URL just ending with the domain name. So here I need to call projects. Okay, and we have a small problem here, because this will be asynchronous call, right? Because this is HTTP call, this is asynchronous call, so you need to handle it, right? So if you're familiar with the promises, you can handle this with the promises like this. If it is a then, right? So you need to get the projects and return projects, right? So you can do like that. Okay, but oops, I think I made a small mistake here. Projects, right? So you can do like that. But if you're not familiar with this asynchronous or promise handling, what you can do is you can use async await, right? So I'll do this in this promise based way, and I'll do the get project by ID in async await way, so you will know the both. Okay, So and also I can write a catch here. Okay, so I don't have to do this in this way because the right practice is most of the time we push this to front end, unless otherwise you have a proper login mechanism. But for sake of example, I'm doing this now. Okay, so this one I'm going to write in async await way. So see the difference. So find project by ID. I'm going to get the ID, right? So here I'm going to return this dot get, right? So this time not only the projects, I need to use project and this ID. So I'm going to use a backtick here, right? Right, I use the backtick and template string, so then I can easily concatenate the ID, incoming ID into the URL, right? So here this one I'm going to use in async await way. How we do that? We tell here await, right? And to run the await, to write the await style code inside the method should be async, right? Async await, right? Because async await is kind of writing asynchronous code in a synchronous manner, if you're not familiar with this, right? But these both are same. Okay, not same, but for now it's same. Okay, right. So now we are done our REST API part. What we have done here, we wrap REST API with our GraphQL instance, right? So here now what we do is we go back to index, right? And you will think, okay, this is cluttering this file, right? This is a huge file. This will become a huge file when you have a 10 or 20 resolvers. No, we don't do this way, right? After this, I'm going to show you how we write this same code in a production style. I mean, we don't have to change the code. What we need to do is we need to split this to different files and make it like easy manageable. Multiple developers can work on the same time, kind of a style, right? I'm going to show you that, right? Don't worry. So here, so we have a queries. We have a two queries now. We find employee by ID and employee, right? So we have employees and find employee by ID. So I'm going to write two different more queries. One is projects, right? So that will return type of project. We don't have it yet. And also find project by ID, right? That required ID, which is a type of ID, and that return a single project, right? So we are good. So now here with the type, we need to tell what is the type of the project, right? So type project. So here I need project has an ID, right? And which is not null. Okay, so what are the things project has? Let's say get a one project. I'm going to copy here to here, and so I'm going to put it here so I can easily copy and paste. Let me do this. Okay, for now I'm only taking these lines, right? I'm not going to use the employees for now, but I will do that, right? I will do that eventually. Now why we wait for later? So let's say employees is type of employee. Okay, so this is how it wired up, right? So keep in mind this is a start date, right? So start date I just configured as a string because GraphQL don't have inbuilt data type for date, but I'm going to tell you later how we're going to go around with that. But for now I configured as a date. Okay, so now we have a type, good. So now we need to create other data source as well, right? So our data source is project service, right? So equal new project service. Okay, so we need to import it here. Okay, so we imported here the project service, and also now we included this one here. So now what we need to do is we need to write resolvers, right? So we know, right, three things: query, type, and the resolver, right? We designed the query here, okay, we designed the query here, and we defined the type here, and now we are going to write the resolvers, right? Remember this: query, type, resolver, okay? That will be very easy. Okay, so let's go and do this. So here my query is to projects. Is what we need to do is we need to take the parent and args. We don't do that anything here, but data source, right, and also info. Okay, so what it does is return data sources dot now project service dot, right. So that's it. So now the next one, what's the next query? It's a find project by ID. I'm just copying and paste to make sure if there is any spelling mistake, it should be addressed by this, but it's better to you write yourself so you can fix the spelling mistake. Right, for this one I'm going to take the ID and also data sources and also info. Right, so we are good, and so this one will return data sources dot project service dot find project by ID, and we're going to pass the ID here. Okay, so we are good. That's it, and let's see what happened. Okay, so I'm going to run npm start, and I'm going to make sure still current functionality is working, right? So it's working fine. So if you go to schema, you can see here now we have a projects and the find projects by ID. So I'm going to use, this is the beauty of this, so you don't have to delete this, right? So I'm going to use the find project by ID. Okay, find project by ID, and I'm going to pass the ID as let's say 3, and I'm going to ask the project name and start date. Okay, so let's see what happened. Oops, cannot read the property fetch from the undefined. Okay, let's see. I think I know what's happening here, because okay, this is very important. So here we in the context we have hard coded this as a data sources. I mean, to the struct we use the data sources, but when you directly use the data source as we did last time, it find in the initialize method when it find initialize method. So okay, why we need initialize method? If you want to share something across your resolvers, you can use the initialize method, right? So here when you use the project, right, so this Apollo data source REST is override this initialize method itself. Okay, so if you see here, you can see it, yeah, it's initialize the override method itself. Sorry, it override the initialize method itself. Okay, because of the sleepiness, I mix up the word. Okay, so now when you put the initialize here, right, when you put the initialize here, what happens is it will create new instance and then replace the override instance within the REST data source REST class, right? So therefore that is why it says it's undefined. So what we need to do is we just need to remove this. Okay, so you save and you run. Yeah, exactly, right? So that's why reading the document is important, right? So now you can go through these videos and you can learn everything, but I knew that because I read the Apollo documentation. That documentation clearly says how this initialize block works. Okay, so it's fine when you use the plain data source, but it's not fine when you use the some extended one. Okay, so now you get this. And also here you can use let's say find projects, right? So I'm going to add this as a last one, projects, and I'm going to use the project name, only the name, right? So you can see I'm getting everything, right? So if you go here, you can see these calls comes to our API, right? So when you run this, right, so it get two different it's supposed to get two different calls, yeah, projects and projects 3 project/3, because I'm getting a 3. So now we know how you can deal with the multiple data sources, right, in a single query, right? So in this query, these find employees comes from separate data source, which is in our case is a hard-coded data source, but it can be a database. But the projects come in the REST data source. So what happens is that your query go and hit GraphQL server. GraphQL server send one to REST and other one to the database and take those data and send it back to you, right? How beautiful it is. Okay. So now next video we are going to see how we can build a relational queries. So now in the next video I'll show you how you can get all the projects belong to this employee through single query with using nested resolvers. Okay, till that, stay safe, make sure you subscribe if you are not yet, and also share this video with your friends and then they will subscribe to my channel as well. Stay safe, take care.